Okay, we are all back. So, anybody has any questions to start with? I prepared a few questions, but let's open the floor. And then, do we have anybody who was watching us on YouTube here? Okay, can we all talk, please? Yelena, do you want to say something? You're typing something.
Yeah, I just had an impression that Vanya didn't actually finish his presentation. I had an impression that he was still saying things, and then somehow it was wrapped up.
Okay, let's ask Vanya.
Yes.
Did you finish everything, Vanya?
I can a few words more to talk about.
You wanna talk more, Vanya? Okay, talk.
First, I made a video. We are all in Edward Hopper's paintings now, inspired by the Guardian's text about post with the same title, published on social network Twitter, as a reaction to population isolation due to COVID-19 pandemic. We are all in Edward Hopper's paintings now is a great tweet for anyone who knows Hopper, and especially for me, who wrote about him 17 years ago and 3 more times in doctoral studies. This video was partly a reason for me made a multimedia artwork, Camera Obscura M20, on the topic of loneliness. And the other part of the inspiration was the fact that Camera Obscura, which is a box with a hole through which light passes, looked to me like the apartment of lonely people with a peephole on door through which light enters. I presented behavior of lonely people with a figure looking through a spy hole and the inner life of loner with videos that represent memories. Participating in Performing Agora, International Online Symposium in June 2021, I talked about Prijedor City Square, where I spent my childhood. Gave me an idea to reproduce video on the LED billboard on the renovated department store, just above where my grandfather's house was. A video with members of my family and family we shared the yard with, and so I, on that way, bring their characters back to the same place after so many years. Part of the idea rests in videos for the multimedia work Camera Obscura M20. I described the further work on the topic of cultural remembrance at the Performing Agora Symposium, and it refers to the symbolic return of the other inhabitants of the square in a similar way.
Okay, Vanya, thank you so much.
Hey.
Now, Elena, if you're more interested, you can contact Vanya and you can definitely chat more about this.
Okay.
Can we continue with the roundtable? Anybody, any observation? Okay, so I have a question for Bill. Are you there, Bill?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm here.
All right, thanks. So, Bill, you mentioned a couple of really important things that I think in terms of Zoom theater and Zoom performance. You talked about time zones. You talked about limited sense of location, but also about connection. We didn't hear the text, but we did hear the images And that was quite clear. As I understand, this was done as an experiment in terms of how we communicate one-to-one. There was no audience outside of performers' interactivity. So, who would be the observer of this? Or you were not looking into that, you were just exploring the phenomenon of communication. How would that work?
Well, I mean, I would argue the one-to-one performance is a established format for making performances, and we might not reach a large number of people, but the type of interaction leaves a deep impression on those who are, you know, we perform in festivals, and, you know, spectators kind of book a performance, but they're just an audience of one. So it's not a very economical format, I agree. But the stories which the person gets, they then repeat to other people. They say, I had the most crazy experience today. I had this this woman from China talking to me, and then we were doing this and we were doing that. So the performance seeps out through this kind of wider dissemination. The videos which I showed, I don't typically show as a final document, because actually it's much more experiential as a piece of artwork. And it's important to retain that interactivity. When you're just witnessing other people's interactivity, it's sort of one of the main points, one of the main qualities of the work is lost.
Thank you, Bill. This is really good. Just one more question. So if this is open to audience, what will be the position of audience in this process?
The audience books the ticket, and then they get the Skype call, or they get the WeChat call from their home, and off they go. It's quite simple like that.
And then they would observe this process, or would they be engaged in communication?
They'll be engaged. They have to talk too. They're on a call with somebody, and that person may well ask them to do things, invite them, and they're in a relation with a stranger. Like we are now. I don't think we've met before, but somehow we're in some kind of relation with one another.
Yes, fascinating.
Nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet you too. Fascinating, really good, excellent. Thank you. So that brings me actually to a question to Jelena, because in a way that was also a singular experience within a virtual reality, in the same sense what Bill was offering as a singular experience within the video conferencing communication exchange. Can you just elaborate a little bit, Jelena, about this single person experience with the VR? Because you started comparing it to sort of I think almost just a medical.
Yeah.
Technical.
Yeah, for me especially, I'm not kind of gaming person, and then for me this was the first time to be in this kind of environment, and being in opera at the same time was quite unexpected. But I think the most profound moment that I was not conscious at the beginning came a bit later, when actually I realized at some point, and I said in the talk, because you start thinking, who are the characters? Are there characters? Are there any narrative in it, etc.? But at some point you realize that you yourself is the only character of the piece, because the person who enters chooses actually. There were some multiple choices there also, that you could take not different paths, but a little bit different experiences in it. But this revelation was intriguing for me, that actually you realize at some point that you are the only audience members, but at the same time, you are also the only character of the piece, so to say. So it's an interesting point of view, at least.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm trying to understand the character thing. Like you are the audience and you're the character. So you would have an avatar presence. Is that?
Not really.
How are you character within the virtual reality?
Not really, but I was not a character, but I was the one. I think the intention of the author eventually was to make you aware of your singular presence there, and that without you, this drama, so to say, it's not drama in classical sense, would not happen. Because they are all waiting in that installation, all the three ladies, the little girl, the midlife woman and the older woman, they're all waiting for the person to come inside and to do something with you. So in that sense, the piece does not exist without the person who enters there and who becomes the center of attention, so to say. In that sense, I felt as a character, but at the same time as some kind of strange audience member.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I keep talking. Anybody else wants to?
I have a little question just to Jelena to go further on this feeling of a character and feeling of the audience. Just to ask, actually, you move through the space, right?
Yes.
So your body moves in the space and your view views in the virtual reality. Right.
Yes, we're actually not completely aware of the space.
Yeah, but you are moving.
Yeah, I'm moving, but I'm not sure actually how big is the space. I was only aware of the entrance, but later I couldn't predict how big or how spacious that hall is. And actually, I couldn't also predict precisely the direction that I was walking. At the end, I had the sense that I was walking the 8, the sign for infinity, but that was not the case.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, no, that's my child.
Right.
No, well, I think I only wanted to say that probably that is where the sense of being a character comes from, this feeling that you are deciding what the story, and yet you don't really, you're not really aware of where can it go, where can it take you.
Yeah, and there is another dimension that this author somehow networks his previous pieces. I think in each new piece of music theater by Michel Vandera, you find a kind of spiral towards some of the pieces that he wrote before. And actually the references to Borges are in that sense that everything is interconnected, some kind of internet is there. So some fragments, so to say, of his earlier pieces were also there. A point where you can switch on or off the light. That point below the table also belongs to one of his previous pieces. So it also felt as some kind of strange path through the opus of this author, but this time not as what I normally am, as critic or theorist, but as a performer, actually, as a performer in his piece. Performer that didn't know that he's going to become a performer.
So thank you. Yeah, in the sense that you didn't know what you were actually supposed to do, you were more a character, like and
the whole approach to the piece. The only thing that I knew is that I need the 15 minutes time slot to reserve to be able to see it. But I had no idea, and no one had idea actually, that the whole building is going to be deserted, that you are going to meet only one person or two. So this all of this was also the staging of the performance, so to say, because I thought I thought this is some kind of public holiday. Because of that, the building is empty. But only later I realized that that was also the set for the whole thing. This kind of loneliness experience.
Yeah. Well, connecting with the loneliness experience, just a quick question to Vanya. Connecting to
What is it? I didn't hear you.
you were doing. So I'm just see Samocha. Hello.
Nisam čuo.
I'm asking you about connection between the heritage, memory, and the loneliness which you're establishing in your piece, and you're doing it through the digital performance. Povezivanje sećanja i usamljenosti
Okay.
u performance.
I said it was in my work, multimedia artwork, camera obscura, M20, where inner life of lonely people I present with videos. Videos is made of photos and video clips from past. My photos, my family, my people around me. That videos was inspired me to made a video you saw a few minutes ago, and memories is way to fight with loneliness or solitude. One way to fight with loneliness or solitude. It's about it's that.
Can I ask the question to Nicoletta?
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I was quite intrigued by this dimension of ventriloquism in the piece that you described, that actually the audience can pick up the lines and can create the whole dialogue there. And I'm fascinated with that because also in singing, many times there is this disruption, this desynchronization between what we hear and what we see on stage. And on the other hand, it connects us to this ventriloquism that is increasing in all kinds of communication that we have. So I wonder if you have some thoughts about it, like how this ventriloquism, this displacement of voice and body, of what we hear and what we see, how it's functional in today's society.
Actually, I raised my hand because I wanted to share something with all of you. It's more something that I am now thinking of it and trying to collect different data from what your presentations, Yelena, Bill, and Vladimir. I was just thinking about this solitude that at the beginning I named it uniqueness, to be honest. I mean, I started seeing this common ground of interaction, of improvisation, of building up every time something different, and this drove me to think of creating something unique, something that is based on randomness. That's why it requires readiness from the performer side. And this is something that I just wanted to share with you at first. Jelena, you asked something about the soundscape that we hear and the performance we watch and the interconnection, right?
Yes, basically this discord between what we see and what we hear, that possibility that you can change one of these layers and even say what is truthful or not truthful in a sense.
Yeah, right. Actually, after many rehearsals, we will keep surprising ourselves with the outcome. We were rehearsing with real soundscapes that we had to record later on. The washing machine, the laundry, everyday house sounds. The performance was staying exactly the same, encapsulating, let's say, a 1 year or 2 year relationship in 4 minutes. And at the same time, the third layer of improvisation was the script. It was quite interesting what was coming up. At cases, there was a synchronicity of what we could watch and what we could hear. So in a way, it seemed quite truthful. Somebody hugging, caressing somebody and saying, I love you. At the same time, it was quite truthful that in another rehearsal, the synchronicity was between caressing and between slapping and reading I love you. And this is it seemed as if we were seeing we were watching truthfulness from another perspective. It was compact, what's happening usually in an abusive relationship, that the words doesn't go according to what we do, the actions. So it still is, but I'm talking about the rehearsals we did in the past. Quite interesting how truthfulness lies there in comparison to what we live, what we experience as spectators and or as actors of life. When I use the word, I mean actors of life. Is it something that, is it an answer for you, Jelena?
Yes, it's very interesting. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I have a question if nobody else has. I would like, do you hear me? Yeah, I would like to ask a question to Aleksandar about his keynote lecture. And I would just actually ask that, so you said that we are living in the world of post-reality, in which reality becomes actually irrelevant. And I would like to ask you, do you see a need for some kind of a resistance towards it, especially from us who deal with this virtual and non-virtual as our jobs? And if you think that it's necessary, what would it be?
No answer? No, Aleksandar, I'm sorry. No, he's not here. Well, then I'm sorry for this. Then somebody else should ask something.
Čujemo vas.
Da, ali vi me čujete, ali me ne čuje onaj kome je pitanje upućeno.
Okay, I
Evo
will,
Ivan.
as a co-host, try to give some answers to these burning questions.
Thank you.
And, when we take a look at the structure of what is post-truth, it doesn't differ from performative utterance. It is not, it is in philosophy, it is actually the same thing. It is a question about belief, because what we believe in is the truth. And that becomes criteria for our perception. It becomes a filter for our perception. And how we create beliefs, and does beliefs have any standing point in the reality itself? That is what art has been doing from, I don't know, since millennia. And that is aesthetics, ethics, ethics is, and ethics is behavior in Old Greek language. So we need to again perform, and through a live experience of us as the performers, creators, and the experience we create for the audience, actually test and create and transform the notions of belief and truth. So, and about the resistance, the most important resistance is the experience, because that is something which nobody can take away from us. No ideology, no government. That is our knowledge and our experience is in us. So creating experience for me is the solution to all this mashup of post-truth and everything about it. So I'll keep eyes on the road again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I have a huge problem with internet. I was completely disconnected. So I didn't hear the first part of Ivan talk. I heard the second part. It's quite good, obviously. Everything's good. But I'm just going to just briefly talk about experience. That's the only thing I picked up. You know, it's all about context where you live. So taxi driver in Manchester asked me where I'm from. And I said, I'm from Serbia. I live here 25 years. And he said, it must be very cold there. That Russia, how are you doing this? This is so cold. He thinks this is Siberia. And in many occasions, people think I'm from Syria. They don't know. So what forms our experience is what we know, what collect. If you live in, Novi Sad or Belgrade, well, and you live there non-stop, that's your experience. If you live somewhere else, like mine, that's your experience. So I would say the context makes your experience. But if you don't have what to measure with, then your experience becomes what they create for you, what they give to you. And unfortunately, if you watch any of those kind of jokey thing when they ask Americans to point to the map, Ukraine, for example, they can't even put Europe, let alone somewhere else. And that's a general notion. People don't know about things. And then we go back to the notion of Barthes. How do we translate these complicated things through popular culture? And that's where I was kind of going with the notion of post-truth, because it's really not anymore about facts. It's about how we create emotional content and how do we get people on that. Any other questions? Anybody else wants to observe something? Okay, well, I think this brings us to a close. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for being part of this conference. We had 2.5 amazing days. Most of the comments I'm getting from people is that they're fascinated with the amount of great speakers that came to talk. So I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with this kind of, somehow it turns out that we have these amazing discussions, really important discussions. So we captured all this. This is all recorded. And we will be obviously proceeding to arrange for a book, arrange for a online site where all this work will be captured, obviously with your permission. So we will be in contact with you over next 10 days or so. So in my name, thank you so much. I don't know if anyone wants to step in and thank you on behalf of University of Belgrade, University of Arts Belgrade, but in terms of University of City Birmingham and Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, thank you very much for your participation.
Yeah, thank you all, and wish you more truth and post-truth and more experience and more creativeness and more luck in the days ahead, and we will be in contact, and thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.